Okay. Our objective for today, I can represent data on dot plots and identify the effects of outliers. Let's read together. 1, 2, 3. I can represent data on dot plots and identify the effects of outliers. So if you notice the first part, it's still the same as yesterday. We already started with dot plots, but we didn't finish the second example, which was identifying outliers. That's what we're going to do today. And I'm not talking about like some of you that copy from people the home play and turn it in like yours, and you're straight outliers. Get it? Outliers. Yeah, you guys missed it? All right, never mind. All right, so. Never mind. All right, in your Fourier model, write this down. Dot plot. In the center of your Fourier model, write dot plot. We already did it? Oh, thank you, Santi. Then that means you shouldn't have a problem writing all the information without looking at your notes. All right, so we did this yesterday. Fill in the rest of the information. Oh, Seabass, I'm sorry. Wow. Okay. Fill in the information without looking at your notes. See how much you remember. Ready, go. All right. By now, you should have at least an example. You should have at least one critical attribute. Okay. So talk it over with your neighbor and see if they have anything else that you're missing, or help them out in case they're missing some information. Go. Share it to see what they're missing. Okay, so let's see. Here goes what it should look like. Hands if you got at least an example looking like that. Okay? How about who got at least one critical attribute? Okay? And the non-example, I'm pretty sure some of you wrote a axis, such as X and Y axes. Okay? And the definition, once again, dot plots is a data representation that uses a number line and X's, dots, or symbols to show frequency. And last night, home play was about that. So hopefully, if you notice on that cricket one, where you had to set up your dot plot, it shows you exactly the frequency as to how frequently a cricket chirped within the 15-second interval, right? Either 30 chirps, 31, or 32. And what was the most common? 30. And that's how you use those dot plots to see a little bit more clear, which one's the one that has the most frequencies. And of course, you answer the question because it said how many or which one was the most common. All right. So, everybody got that? There's two number lines. That is correct. We got the X and the Y. Yeah. So the question was, the non-example is not a non-example because it's got two lines. Yeah, it's got the X and the Y. All right, I'm going to forward the slide on your iPad, but if you're not done copying the rest, it's going to be on the screen over here. However, we already have these steps. You don't need to copy those. Okay, and the steps are basically we're still identifying mean, median, mode, and range. We're still graphing the data on dot plots. We're identifying outliers. We know how to find Q1, Q3, but today I'm going to show you how to find the IQR. And then at the end, we're going to summarize our data. Okay? So what I do want you to copy underneath your Fourier model is this next box. It says how to identify an outlier. Should be in front of you on your screen. How to identify an outlier. And then it says right underneath, a data value X is an outlier if X is less than Q1 minus 1.5 times the IQR, or if X is greater than Q3 plus 1.5 times the IQR. Copy that, please. So as you're finishing copying that, underneath write example Q. Now, I'm not going to show you right now how to compute the, or identify the outlier, but compute it. But I am going to show you really quick what an outlier is just by looking at data. So watch. Let's say, example Q. Let's say I wrote down the scores that this class got on the last take-home party that we had for Easter break, yes, spring break. So out of 20 points, let's see, I started seeing 20, 20, 16, 12, 16, 12, 20, 20. Yeah, each party was 8 questions, but how many parties were there? And if it was 5 parties to get 20 points, how much each party? Oh my goodness. 4. 20, 16, 20, and then one person, 4. Therefore, looking at that data, focus please, looking at that data, which one will you consider being an outlier? 4. Because 4 is the only one that you see that's totally extremely not fitting that data. That's a quick glimpse as to what an outlier is. But right now I'm going to show you how we can prove that it is an outlier. Okay? So, any questions with this formula that they give us for the outlier? Okay? So right now, we already know what Q1 and Q3 are. The only one that we have not clarified is the IQR, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So, yes? Yes. Question was, could there be more than one outlier? Yes, there could. But for right now, I just wanted to show you this so that it's so obvious that you can see it. Okay? So I'm going to forward to the next slide, and we're going to work on this problem. Right, example number 1. Example 1, and it says, you don't have to copy all this. What I do want you to copy is the data set, which is 25, 30, 35, 35, 35, 40, 40, 40, 45, 45, 50, 60, and 150. Copy that, please. Write example 1 and copy the data. But I'm going to read the problem through. It says, suppose the list of salaries in example 1 is expanded to include the owner's salary, which is $150,000. Now the list of salaries is 25, 30, 35, 35, 35, 40, 40, 40, 45, 45, 50, 60, and 150. Okay? Everybody wrote those down on their paper? Okay. I'm going to forward the screen, and I'm going to zoom into part A and part B. We're not going to be able to see the scores because you already wrote them down, yes? All right, so I'm going to zoom into A and B. Everybody see that? All right, so on your screen, they're going to appear, so I want you to lock your toolbar, please. Lock your toolbar. All right? Is everybody there? All right, so to get us on the same page, I need, let's see, Idalis, can you read me the data set, please? Yes. 25, 30, 35, 35, 35, 40, 40. Only 2 40s? Is it 2 40s or 3? 3. Continue. 45. 45. Oh my goodness. 50, 60, and 150. Nice. Okay, let me read it back to make sure that everybody has these numbers and that I got them right. 25, 30, 35 three times, 40 three times, 45 two times, 50, 60, and 150. All right? So, before we do anything else, we're going to create our dot plot. So, check this out. Let's scale this by 20, so watch. Look up, please. We go 20, 25, 30, 35, and I'm going to mark 40. Mark it yourself, please. 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, 105, 10, 15, 120, 25, 30, 35, 140. Okay? All right, and I don't want you to press send. We're still working on it. You just lock your screen. And now, using this data that we have here, I want you to create a dot plot. You already know how to do that, right? And the easiest way is for you to click on your pen down at the bottom, increase the font. Does everybody understand what I'm doing? So like that, as soon as you tap it, watch. The first number is what, 25? 20 is here, 25 is right there, so you just tap it. It becomes 1 point. What's the next number? 30. We go 1 over, so it's right there. 35, how many of them? 3. 1, 2, 3. And you know what to do from there, right? Okay, finish it off, please. I'll give you guys some time. Go. All right, let's see. So yours should look something like this. Let's see. I had 35, 35, 35, 40, 40, 40, 45, 2 of them, 150, 160, and 1. Okay. So looking at this data, do you now see how obvious it is, the outlier? Yes. Yes. And that's what dot plots help us look at. Because sometimes when we look at data that is just given to us like this in a group, we can see it because we're mathematicians. But for people to actually see it, really see it, you can give them a graph and show them like that. Okay, and ask the question, do you really now see what the outlier is? They're going to say, yeah, this one over here. But we showed it right now with a graph. Okay? Now we're going to use the little formula that was given. And I'll walk you through that in a little bit. So before we get to that, first things first, look at this data that we have. I want you to identify the median. We already have it in order from least to greatest. Identify the median, please. How many numbers are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That means we have 6 and 6. There should be a middle one, right? So what's our middle one? 40. So label that Q2, and that is 40. All right. Yeah, on your paper. Yeah. Yeah, you have all these numbers on your paper, right? So now that we have Q2, it divided our data into 2 sections. The lower section, which is this one, and the upper section, which is this one. So now from the lower section, we can identify Q1. Is that correct? Okay. Identify Q1, please. And once you're done with that, identify Q3. Okay, Julian, how do you, what's our Q1? Q1, Julian says, is 35. Hansi, do you agree? How do you identify that, Julian? No, you're right. Yeah, but how did you get that? You found the median. So how many numbers in this half? 6. And if we're halfway, there is no number halfway, so that means he added 35 plus 35, that's 70 divided by 2, 35. That is correct. All right? Therefore, what is Q3? Q3, Sergio. Hands if you agree with 50. Crickets. Okay. What'd you get for the Q3, Mia? 47.5. How did you get that? 45 and 50, add those up and divide it by 2. That is correct. Why? Because there is no median until we add those two. Everybody got it? So let's label here what we have. We have Q3, which is 47.5. Write that on your screen. And then we have 35, which is Q1. Are we there so far? So now, check this out. Before we do IQR, let me show you really quick in a way that it's going to be easy to follow along. Pens down, look to the screen really quick. Let's say we have this data here, and I asked you to find me the range. I'll take a volunteer to tell me how do I find the range of this data set. Okay, Julia. Take the largest number minus the smallest number. Largest minus the small. Does that make sense? Okay. Well, guess what? This letter here, the R, stands for range. But we're going to find the inner quartile range. Do we know what the Q's are? Yeah, so what would you subtract? Tell your neighbor. What would you subtract to find the inner quartile range? Patrick, what would you subtract? 47.5 minus 35. Why? Because those are this is the greatest Q and the smallest Q. So that you have it in your notes, I want you to write that. Write it in here, but also write it in your notes. Right. IQR equals to Q3 minus Q1. That's a little formula you should have. IQR is equal to Q3 minus IQR. Write that on your notes, please. Okay, thank you. Okay, now on the screen, I want you to write, what is Q3? 47.5 minus, what is Q1? 35, and what does that give us? 12.5. Okay. Yeah, cop that, put that on your screen, please. All right. Now check this out. Pens down, eyes up here. Now I want you to know why we're using, look up please, why we're using 150 greater than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. Watch. Pens down, eyes on the screen, please. When I asked you to write this down, how to identify an outlier, it says a data value X is an outlier if X is less than Q1 minus 1.5 IQR, or if X is greater than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. So that means it's either on the lower half or on the upper half. So now that we have data, where is the 150 located? Look at it. Look at this data right here. Where is it at? On the upper half. That's where we use greater than Q3 plus 1.5 IQR. What if the number was over here and it was a 1? What would you use? Less than Q1 minus 1.5 IQR. Does that make sense? All right, so now let's find out and see if it is an outlier. So what is Q3? So write that in here, 47.5 plus parentheses 1.5 times, what was that, the IQR? 12.5. So find me what that is. So multiply 1.5 times 12.5, and at the end add 47.5. If you have a calculator, that's fine. you eat something without drinking water? No? You need to get scared. What is it? Who got 66.25? That is correct. So, with that said, this is 66.25, right? So watch. Let me write this right here. 150 is greater than, this is what? 66.25. Is this true? Yes. If it is true, then guess what? 150 is an outlier. You're like, all that work for that, Mr. Q? Yes, all that work for that. So for home plate, you're going to have a couple of these where you have to find the Q2, Q1, Q3, and then they're going to ask you if one of those numbers is an outlier. Okay? So your home plate for tonight. Yeah, press send the screen before you close. Your home plate for tonight is on page 445. There's no tutoring tonight. I have to go to the district and take care of some stuff. So have a good one. Enjoy your home plate. See you guys tomorrow. Bye.